this time I wrote it down. I just like the way it turned out. So if you don't mind, I might be not making all the eye contact as I usually do. But still, we're gonna get started here. So I'm here to tell you about my experience with alcohol and how misconceptions of it made it difficult for me to see its destructive and addictive power. The truth about alcohol is that it is a drug, so educate yourself on facts about it. I found this booklet right here, um, as well as other materials such as Truth About Drugs DVD and the Drug Free World website, which is www.drugfreeworld.org, to be packed with easy to access facts about alcohol and other drugs. It actually comes in a pack like this. This is all very useful to gain a large scope of what they are, what they do, and how they impact the world. However, real personal stories about real experiences with drugs, such as the story that I'm about to tell you, have been useful to me in order to bring some of these more abstract ideas into a more personal reality. And perhaps I can reach audience members like myself who benefit best with both sources of knowledge. So let me begin with my story. After years of appreciating alcohol as a social norm, I ended up in hospitals on a regular basis due to seizures and other symptoms of severe alcohol withdrawal. You can check out a short quote on page 11 of the Truth About Drugs booklet here, where somebody quotes, I spent the next 8 years in and out of detox and hospitals trying to figure out what happened to me, how it was possible I couldn't quit. It happens. Coming from a history of private education, international professional work, freelance creative work, friendships from all walks of life, and above average health, I became reduced to a confused and irrational addict who was homeless and jobless, begging for money on the street so that I could buy more alcohol. No friends or family, not that anybody who wanted me around, and my body barely functioned due to dehydration, malnutrition, and other physical complications caused by alcohol. And the physically destructive effects of alcohol because of part of my life. And so my struggle with alcohol became a physical life or death, problem. And looking back now on the history of alcohol in my life, it was never the harmless household and social norm that it appeared to be, like it does so often in movies and typical social gatherings. I grew up in a home with physical violence and emotional tension because of my father's alcoholism. And some of my earliest memories of my mom were her having to sleep in my bed so that my father could not beat her when he was drunk at night. This is when I was a little boy. And I didn't understand what caused his own dependency on alcohol like I could understand him now. But when I was a young boy, I understood that he worked hard and that he cared for me, but I also understood that he was not there for me. And he preferred to drink alone at night and on weekends. I saw an acceptable side of alcohol where it was present at all our family get-togethers. And I knew that my dad had a whole refrigerator full of beer in the patio just for himself. And my mother did not drink. But I also knew that alcohol had caused problems because he hid bottles of hard liquor around the house. And I dealt with my parents constantly arguing over his drinking. His health was not affected like mine was, but something useful to understand is that everyone's physical, mental, emotional, and perhaps even spiritual health is different. And that is why I'm sharing my story with you. Out of pure curiosity, I took my first drink at the age of 10 when I reached into my father's room to try one of his beers. And I didn't stay curious then, and I began to look out about
Okay, we had some kind of a technical difficulty there. So Alejandro, you can continue.
I'm here.
Okay, great. You can continue. It somehow it kicked us off and brought us back on, but we're all ears. You can continue.
That's okay. It happens. Technical difficulty. I was again curious, but now I had more reasons to try alcohol, and I wanted to fit in with my friends who mostly learned about alcohol from their own older brothers and sisters in their own homes. So once I began drinking with them, I began to learn more about alcohol, but in a very distorted way. And like all drugs that people continue to use after they try them the first time, I liked alcohol when I first tried it because it just made me feel good. And the physical effects of it were easy to understand. All drugs basically do the same thing. They change the way that you feel. You may like the feeling or you may not. Usually someone will offer drugs to you or advertise a drug to the mass audiences, such as alcohol is constantly advertised, with the message or understanding that it will make you feel better. Doesn't matter if it's legal or illegal or considered a hard drug or more controversial than others. So especially at a young and influential age and without the complete education and knowledge that I have now, it's easy to believe the more glamorous and cool messages about drugs. It's easy to believe that you don't feel good already or that you don't feel as good as others do and that using a drug is the only way to achieve that. That's a big misconception. I may have behaved like a fool sometimes because of alcohol, but so did my friends. And that was part of our way of having fun. In this sense, I drank to fit in. And the peer pressure didn't stop there. We all kept very high grades and we liked to appear older. So we would dress up and use fake IDs to get into nightclubs where we drank with the older crowds. And it was a misconception that drinking makes you mature and sophisticated. There were always higher expectations out of most of my group of friends, from school and from home. And we always pushed ourselves to handle more. And this drive was present even in our use of alcohol. So there was always this peer pressure to drink more. And there was this unspoken competition to be able to handle more, not just with alcohol, but soon with other drugs. And I didn't see the peer pressure as anything more than friendly competition. I knew that I could handle it and that I wasn't one of those people who lost control and ended up in embarrassing situations. I graduated top of my class out of high school with English honors, college credits, and an AS degree in design. And so how could alcohol, of any drug that I tried, appear harmful to somebody like me? It just didn't. It didn't. But I wasn't aware of the other reasons that I was using drugs even then. I didn't realize that I was already depending on alcohol and relying on it and expecting it to help me in more ways than the obvious ones. So I was bullied, when I was a young boy. My dad wasn't around to teach me to fight or to stand up for myself. So when I entered high school, I was prepared to do whatever it took to not be that bullied and teased little boy from grade school. When I saw that I could gain respect and have control over friends and appear stronger, I used drinking not only to fit in, but to protect myself from any bullying or for being put down. Being able to do that and maintain above average grades made me popular and made me feel secure. And that's what I believe. But the truth is that I would have been better off from the start knowing how to stand up for myself and being able to make my own educated decisions based on the knowledge that directly affected me. I related alcohol to friendship and to support and to comfort. And in my teenage years, I rarely drank by myself, but I also started beginning to use marijuana by myself. Despite all of the other ways that I knew how to appreciate life and feel good without any drugs, I began to turn to marijuana to keep me company and to make me feel better. I could never talk to my friends about my father's violence towards my mother at home, and that was a big deal. There were many things that I often thought that I could not talk to anyone about, not even my best friends or my girlfriend. And drugs offered something for me to turn to. Drugs became something that would comfort me, something that would not solve my problems, but would allow me to escape them. And alcohol was already affecting me mentally and emotionally. The way that drugs can provide an escape from mental discomfort is not the same for everyone. And that makes it confusing and it's hard to understand them and to see the possible patterns of dependency already in somebody's life. So the drug awareness education that I did receive when I was young didn't bring up these reasons for why people use drugs, and that's often the big misconception. People just use them because they're fun and all that stuff, but a lot of times, a lot more. There's a lot more going on. Definitely people want to escape their problems. There are a lot of other issues going on there. And I remember a drug education class held in the 4th grade with a police officer present who showed me photos of the harmful effects of drugs. And as a teenager, I recall campaigns such as Just Say No and anti-drunk driving commercials on TV and scared sober tactics. And I never believed that any of these were meant for me because I didn't identify with the message or perhaps with the messenger, or I didn't find them genuine enough or not personal enough. So I didn't know that I could begin to develop a dependency on drugs in my mind at a young age. I didn't know how that dependency could progress over years. I knew that I had tried drugs and I believed that they had not harmed me in any way. And like many teens and young adults believe that they are invincible. I believe in the misconception that I had power over them and that they could never become a problem in my life. Throughout college and my professional life, alcohol was always present. After work drinks, happy hour drinks, drinks with clients, and drinks at company parties and events with colleagues. It was common, and it often felt like part of the job to have drinks with colleagues. And remember, I had learned back in high school to use alcohol as a sign of maturity, popularity, and strength. I worked in many creative lines of work, like advertising and fashion, and originality is very important there. And there's this big misconception that drugs make some people more creative. And today I see how much more original it would have been for me to not drink or use anything else. But the mental effects of alcohol were recorded in my mind at a very early age. To me, drugs always would help me to fit in, to keep me company, and to escape my problems. They were a part of my life now, at work and at home. And as I grew older, my attraction to alcohol remained. During my last years in New York City, I was faced with more complicated problems at home, and I turned to alcohol heavily. I was in a very unhealthy relationship for a long time, and regardless of any career and independent achievements, my life at home was always difficult and really emotionally demanding. My partner and I, to top it off, even ended up with opposite work schedules, so I often found myself alone. And I definitely turned to alcohol for many of the reasons that I mentioned, such as comfort and loneliness. It slowly began to become a problem that I could see, and finally I needed to react to it. First, I began blacking out and not knowing how I got home, waking up in a stranger's home and losing my belongings. It took time before my problem became so extreme that it began not showing up to work. I left New York and ended that unhealthy relationship that I was in, but my dependence on alcohol had already been established. Now in Los Angeles, and despite a great attitude and a whole list of ambitions and goals that I was set to achieve and new supportive people in my life, my way of dealing with all my problems with alcohol kept setting me back. It was a complete trap that I found myself in, where the more frustrated that I became, the more that I drank, and the further back that it set me from the goals. So the more that I would drink, and it was just this vicious cycle. And I came to the point where I couldn't begin my day without a drink, and I began having to wait outside of liquor stores at 6 in the morning to buy that first bottle of liquor. And at first, I believed that my mind needed it to calm down and to think clearly. I believed that alcohol relieved my stress, my frustration, and fear. And when my body began to demand it in the morning, then I really knew that I had a problem. And even then, it was difficult to face the truth. When I knew that I was out of control with alcohol, it was embarrassing, it was confusing, and it was scary. Part of the time I appeared in control and kept a good job for a while. And then I began to establish this new pattern where I couldn't keep my job because I would spend my paycheck on alcohol. I would end up in a hospital room fighting alcohol withdrawal, and then I would get better and find a new job. This is commonly known as binge drinking, and there's information on pages 8 and 9 of this alcohol pamphlet on how that begins to become a way of drinking. Binge drinking is also used when a person doesn't drink every day, but drinks for a period of time and then stops for another period of time. And a binge drinker may believe that while he is staying away from alcohol, he has control over it. And this is a big misconception, because once a person has developed this dependency, this addiction to alcohol, he's never completely in control of it. It was so difficult for me to accept that I was addicted to alcohol. However, my addiction had progressed dramatically, and I began to experience seizures due to alcohol withdrawal. My immune system is weaker now because of alcohol use, and my body is subject to more severe reactions to it. There are many short-term and long-term effects of alcohol, also listed on pages 14 and 15 of our booklets here. And I've experienced them. The most alarming, most recently, as my dependence on alcohol has progressed into gastritis, which is the inflammation of the stomach walls, general malnutrition, where I've ended up with IVs on a hospital bed, and bleeding ulcer. So I had never learned about this side of alcohol on a personal level. I had never understood why people become addicted to it and how they suffered both physically and mentally. It took time for me to really have that knowledge and awareness of what drove me to drink in the first place. What was I looking for? Could it develop into a future problem, and what would the signs be? Today, I know that more knowledge would have helped me to make the most educated decisions when it came to using or not using alcohol in the first place. So to take an online course on alcohol and other drugs, you could please visit drugfreeworld.org/course. Your own experiences also count very much. Remember, drugs affect different people in different ways for many different reasons. So be the one who is not afraid to share your own story about how alcohol and or any other drug has affected you because of your own use or because of somebody else's. That's all. So thank you, and stay healthy.
Okay, well, thank you all so much. It looks like we ended a little bit early, but that gives you all time to do all the things that you need to do. Thank you so much, Alejandro, for sharing the story with us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And many of you have already signed up for our other webinars. So if you haven't, you're welcome to attend as many as you like. And some of the webinars that we have next week are going to go over teaching educators, law enforcement, really anyone who wants to teach about drug education and prevention. We have an entire webinar that will pretty much train you on how to do that. I'm going to be delivering a webinar next week on how to deliver a drug-free world event. And we have lots of other great speakers who are going to be sharing a wealth of knowledge about drug education and prevention and the free materials that we have at Drug Free World. So we hope you're all feeling well. And again, thank you so much. And we hope to see you soon. Thank you, Alejandro.
You're very welcome.
Okay. Goodbye.
I'm chatting with somebody right now. Do we keep this open?
Okay. Yeah. If anyone actually, that's a good idea. I'm going to leave this webinar up for a little bit. And if anyone wants to ask Alejandro questions, put it in the chat. If you all see at the bottom of your screen, there's a button that says chat, and you click that and it will bring up a chat screen, and you can ask questions there, and Alejandro will be able to see it and he can answer your question. So let's, we'll keep this open for a few minutes if anyone has any questions.
I'm willing to hang out and chat. So if anybody has any questions, like Megan said, just go ahead. I'm doing it right now.
Also, some of you saw that Alejandro was holding up a booklet. I don't have one on me, but it was the Truth About Alcohol booklet. Alejandro, you wanted to show it to them? Good, and just talk so they can see it too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect.
There's the truth about alcohol, and this is the whole pack actually that I've handed out a lot of these when I've gone to do presentations and just handed all this. This is a truth about drugs, and when you open it, it has a whole selection of different, different drugs that you could educate yourself or somebody else with.
Exactly, and I put in the chat maybe like 10, or actually maybe like 12 people prior, the link where you can download this for free, or you could just read the booklet in a really nice format online, or you can order them to be shipped to you. Okay, so that's a good question, Bahanala. Oh, you just got, okay. So you go to the link. I'm gonna, to make it easy, let me go back and copy this for you and put it down here. And that's the link where you can order the booklet for free, or let's say you're a teacher or you're you work in a hospital or whatnot, and let's say you want to have it on display or you want to give it out to the whole school and so on, you can order the booklet in bulk. And if you only want one, I think that's what you're asking here. If you only want one, you can also get it from the website. You can download it from that link that I sent you, just the one PDF, or you can order one booklet to be shipped to your house. So it can be a lot or it can be one. It's no problem. Obviously, we're not gonna, many of us are home, so it's not like we're gonna be giving out booklets to people right now, but it's also a really great time to download the booklets and share it on your social media or share it in your newsletter. Or if you're participating in other webinars, you can share it with people. And definitely the more people that get this information, the better. In fact, one of our webinars next week is going to cover how drugs affect the immune system, which is completely relevant with what's happening right now with the coronavirus. And so obviously we want to raise awareness on the correlation between that. So let's see if we have some more comments here. Okay. Perfect. Okay, so does anyone have any other questions that they want to put in the chat for Alejandro before we end this meeting? Now is the time to ask any questions. Okay. Okay, great. So then I'm going to be closing the webinar. And thank you all so much again for being here, and Alejandro for sharing your story. Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.